What's up, fam, and welcome back to our Z Roll, and we're really excited for today because when we got back from our Disneyland trip, we had a lot of DMs, a lot of comments, asking questions about like just some tips and tricks of taking kids to Disneyland.
Yep. So we started compiling our list, and then it just started growing because we're like, oh, and this, and this. So we have about 17 tips and tricks for you guys.
Like I said, we have about.
So
we have 17, but it could change as we go.
I was gonna say during this time we'd be like, oh yeah, and this, but they're all really good ones. They're ones that made our vacation so much better than it could have been because they just work.
They're
so
tried and
we want to
true.
share them with you guys. Yeah.
So we're just gonna dive in. There's no order here. It's just we just as our brain worked, we wrote them down. So it's not like best to worst or I don't know. Here we go. Number one is stroller.
Yes.
Stroller is huge with having kids. Even if you feel like the kids are almost to the point where they're like, it's kind of that line of like, oh, should we have a stroller or not? I would just say yes to the stroller.
Yes, and the reason why, because we have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. 6-year-old obviously does not need a stroller. If we go anywhere, we do not take a stroller with us except for Disney because there is so much walking. I could have sat in the stroller multiple times. So for a 6-year-old, especially if you have siblings, if they see their younger sibling in one, they're going to be like, I want to get in. So we have a double. It works amazing. Second reason we like it is, what do you call it? You always call it
it's
our
like a home base.
Home base,
like it's just nice to have a place where everyone can meet. We can put the bags. We can store blankets for the evening. Just all of our essentials and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, when we have like other people go with us, they use our stroller to put their stuff on as well. And so again, it's just like having like a little area to kind of feel like safe and secure, if you will.
Place for snacks.
And we recommend the Zoe stroller. We have a video all about it. We'll link that below. We highly recommend Zoe. It meets all the requirements for Disney.
It does.
And they are easy to travel with. They have travel bags. It's just for airplane travel, everything.
Very lightweight stroller, so we
very
love
good.
it.
So recommend that. And we get a lot of questions about strollers, a lot. And again, if you're kind of like, should I? You're questioning it, just do it. You're going to thank yourself later.
All right, so this tip is all about planning ahead for your meals. So obviously things have changed since COVID with ordering your food. Everything's pretty much through the mobile app, which is amazing. I love it. I think Disney's done a great job with that. But the best tip I can give you guys with kids is don't wait till you're hungry or they're hungry to order your food. I would think like an hour ahead, like even though you're not there yet.
If you're hungry, you're too late.
Exactly. Because when you're hungry and you decide, oh, let's order food, it could be another hour before you get it.
And it seems like when that happens, it's stressful, it's frustrating, things take longer than expected, and you're usually settling for something that you really didn't want.
Right. And here's the thing about Disney is they don't just have park food. Like, they have great food. So you want to like take advantage of that, plan ahead, think about places you want to eat at so that you don't miss that opportunity. And just like around 11 o'clock, we're usually like, okay, in about an hour, we're going to be ready to eat. So we're in line for a ride. I'll get my phone out, start looking at the mobile ordering of the place we want to go, where we will be near, order our food. And it's just nice because you're like, when you hit that part, you're like, okay, I'm starving. You're like, food's ready to be picked up and nobody's getting hangry. So
we're good to go. Tip number 3 is rope drop. We love being in the park at rope drop. And basically what that is meaning you're getting to the park when it opens, but Disney actually lets you in the gates, and so you're kind of in this holding tank, if you will. And then there's like, then they start letting you in to the rest of the park when it's actually time to open. And so getting into that holding tank, if you will, is super important because you're going to be able to get on rides that have, small wait times, if that makes sense. And so with our family, and this just depends on the dynamic of your family, but with our kids, they're always up super early as it is. And so we take advantage of rope drop because we seem to get a lot of rides done in the morning or things that we just want to do in the morning, which kind of takes us to our next tip, and that is taking break during the day. So this is kind of a 2-in-1, if you will, but it's a different tip. But having a break during the day is crucial with kids. They just need to change the scenery. So if that means you're just taking them out of the park to walk around downtown Disney, preferably going back to your hotel, going by the pool, taking a nap, whatever the case may be. If it's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever you want to do, it's super helpful because we always come back super refreshed, ready to go. So if you do the rope drop, you're gonna be able to get tons of stuff in, and this is kind of our schedule. We'll just kind of talk about it. We get there at rope drop, we hit a bunch of rides, and then about, I would say after maybe an hour or two after lunch, so maybe about 1:30 or 2, we're usually heading back.
We are.
And then we take like a couple hour break,
Yeah,
sometimes 3,
we
sometimes
swim.
4.
I took a nap, less time. Yeah, just like Justin said, just a change of scenery.
Yeah.
It's just kind of having that downtime because there's just so much like going on in the park all the time. So just getting away from that, we feel so much more refreshed, and the kids do too. Maybe you want to change your shoes, you know, having the evening ahead of you, so then you're ready for like the nightlife of Disney, which I think is a huge, you know, a fun part, and the morning because you hit a lot. The afternoon's fun too, but it's usually the hottest part of the day,
And the lines are usually big.
are the longest during that time.
And again, if you go to rope drop, like you're gonna get all those rides, the big rides out of the way, and that's what we recommend. If you want to do any big rides, hit that. There's Genie Plus and all that kind of stuff, which we're not gonna talk about in this video.
Yeah.
And we will. But the thing is, if you want to bypass Genie Plus and you want to get on rides, you have to go on rope drop. This brings us to our next tip, and that is to be at least walking distance to the park. This is talking mainly for Disneyland. Disney World, we 100% recommend staying in a resort. I know you can save money staying off the resort in different hotels, but by the time you're having to find transportation, and I mean you're there's a, you know what I'm talking about, there's just your time is being wasted by that. So but if we're talking mainly about Disneyland, with the Good Neighbor hotels, make sure that there's a hotel that's walking distance. We honestly prefer staying in the resorts in Disneyland, kind of staying in that Disney bubble, if that makes sense, because we feel like we are just getting just more out of the Disney vacation, but it does cost more money, and so we just you know, plan our vacations a little bit further out to be able to hit those resorts.
Right.
But end of the day, we've done both, and we just make sure that we just are at least walking distance to the park, so you can get to the rope drop faster, and you can take your breaks during the day faster as well.
And we have stayed at places where you can take like a tram, or they have a free shuttle, and it just takes more time because you're waiting for those shuttles, and most of those in that area in Disneyland, they go to multiple like hotels around that area, so you're waiting for picking up and dropping off. It takes a lot of time, so walking I suggest would be the best, like if you can walk and be in that distance area, so it's not so much where you're relying on your transportation.
I mean, this is 3 tips we talked about, so I feel like we can take
that was a lot.
We can take a little bit longer in this segment because it's important. Like she was saying, is when you know in your mind that it's just walking distance to your hotel, you're gonna take those breaks. But when you think, oh my goodness, we have to wait for transportation, we're gonna be waiting here for 30 minutes, blah blah, you tend to then just like, you know what, let's not worry about it, and then you overexhaust yourself, and it's honestly, we've been there before, and we're never going back because we don't enjoy the vacation as much. And then one more in this whole category, I think there's been like 4 tips in this same category. But this is taking a resort day, or basically what this means is just taking a day that you don't have to go to the park.
Right.
So we feel like the sweet spot for Disneyland anyway, and Disney World's a different ball game, but we'll just hone in on Disneyland on this part, is a 5-day, because what we'll do is we'll do 2 days, and then that 3rd day we'll just rest. We'll be by the pool all day. Maybe we'll go in the park for a ride or 2, but there's no agenda. And then we hit the other 2. So really 4 full days in the park. And we really like that. We
had so much fun on our resort day, and we've vlogged our whole last trip to Disneyland. If you guys want to watch that, we'll link that below. But it was so nice because the night before, like I think it was like a midnight night, because we're like in our head knowing we don't have to get up early for a rope drop, like we get to sleep in. I ended up doing like an impromptu massage at the spa at our hotel. It was so fun. Hung out at the pool, did lunch at the pool. It was just so nice, like just to relax. And then we did have a reservation in the park for our dinner later that day, so that was what kind of brought us in there.
I think people forget something, and that is you're doing so much walking and your feet are aching. I don't care if you're someone that runs a lot, walks a lot. The reality is, for whatever reason, when you're in Disney, your feet are so sore. And taking that day in the middle just to like go by poolside, put your feet in the hot tub, it is a game changer. So have that resort day or have that day of rest in the middle of your Disney vacation.
Right. And there is so much you can do outside of the park if you are doing a Disney trip. So if it's Disney World, you've got Disney Springs, you know, and within your resort, there's so much they always have going on. And then Disneyland, you have downtown Disney. So it's just nice to know, like, in your mind, you're not thinking, I got to get to the park. You just kind of designate that day knowing it's just a day to relax and do whatever you want. If you want to go to the park, cool. If you don't, that's cool too.
Yep.
All right, what are we on? Tip 6, 7? I don't even know. We're not going to number them. So next tip though is toddler meals. So this is something we found out on our last trip. We were doing our mobile ordering and they have kids meals, and I was kind of scrolling down there and I was like, hey, what is this? And they have a thing called toddler meals. Now, I don't know if every place has this. It's the burger place in Tomorrowland. I can't think of the name of it, but that's where we went, and that's where I found it. And it's basically just a smaller version of the kids meal, and it was like $4 or $5.
Yeah, it was a lot cheaper.
And our kids never finished the whole kids meal anyways, so it was perfect. It was it still came with like a side and a drink, but it was just a smaller scale of the meal. And Tucker didn't even finish it, and he's 4.
Yep.
So that's just something to note if you have a toddler or a kid that just doesn't eat that much. So like ours, it's really cool, saves money, and you still get a lot for it. So toddler meal.
We get this question a lot, and that is, do we do park hoppers? And yes, we do, because we just love the variety. So if we're in Disneyland in the morning and we go do our rest day, and maybe we plan on going back to Disneyland, but maybe we're like, you know what, Cars Land is so cool at night, I'm feeling Cars Land, then we just hop over to Cars Land. And we just love to have the variety. Sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't, but every single, if we didn't have it, we would regret it and be like, oh man, I wish we had a park hopper.
Yeah.
So we always get a park hopper.
Next is just having a plan, a rough plan, we like to say. Here's the thing, you got to have a balance with it, because you don't want to be those people that have a plan where you're like, we have to stick to it no matter what happens, because your day will get ruined because things happen and
Wait times and whatever.
Yeah, rides are closed that you wanted to do, or shows or anything. So be flexible, but still have a plan. The thing you don't want to do is go into the park and then just not know what to do or where to go. So we always try to have kind of a rough plan, like what are some rides we want to hit, maybe what are some foods we want to get, and then be flexible within that, because there's always those fun things that you just kind of happen to walk into, like, hey, the Spider-Man show's going on right now, let's hop in and see that. Or, you know, you run into something, or you want to have some time to go shopping. So be flexible with that, but still always try to have a plan, either if you kind of make that the night before, or we've done it the day of. We're like walking in or waiting in line, okay, where do you guys want to go first?
Right.
You know, and we'll check on the app wait times, but just kind of have that idea so you're not wasting time.
Right.
And if your plans don't work out, because sometimes rides are closed, then go to your next plan B, you know, so you're not just kind of wandering.
Right. Next tip is ride expectations. This is huge with kids. And what we do is we try to just know what rides are closed during the time we're there. And we kind of check that periodically in the trip. And that way we can tell our kids, like, hey, just so you know, like, this ride is not open, and we can have that conversation before we get in the park, rather than their hopes are up and then all of a sudden, like, we can't go on it. Now that happens, obviously.
Right.
The ride's closed throughout the day, it just happens. But if it's like an actual closure for the whole duration of your trip, it's good just to know. So,
and Disney's really good about showing you, like, what's gonna be closed. You know, you can go to the dates that you're gonna be there, and they'll show like how long. But again, like Justin said, there are those that just randomly break down, you know, and we're like, oh, we'll check back later. But it's just nice to know, like, going into it, like, we knew when we went, Pirates of the Caribbean was gonna be closed the whole time, so it was Finding
still
Nemo.
Hurts. That one still hurts. But I'm so glad we
knew
saw that beforehand, because it would have been such a bummer if you're going
to be like racing there and then they're closed. You're like, seriously.
I mean, especially when it's a classic. You know what I mean? Also, along with the same kind of category is measure your kids.
Yeah.
So beforehand, we measured the height, and so that way we knew what rides Lana can go on, what rides Tucker can go on, and so we were able to then get them excited about those rides.
Yeah, and it just takes away from the disappointment of like, hey, you want to go on this ride? And then we get there and they're like, you're not tall enough. And we're like, cool. Like, but it's like knowing beforehand, like Tucker would have done every ride, but I already told him, like, you can't go on Indiana Jones yet. You can't do this one. And so he kind of knew, you know, and we're like, we talk about next trip you'll get to. So it wasn't a thing where we got him all excited and then drop down disappointment. So
Right.
just another kind of preparation thing you can do beforehand. Another thing we like to do that utilizes your time the best is splitting up. So we do a lot of things together. We kind of plan out those rides that we know we can all do together.
We split up.
We split up though. But just where we're at, we have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So obviously our 6-year-old could go on more rides because he was taller than our younger one. So we kind of just made that plan, and then he would go off with daddy. I was pregnant on our last trip.
I would go off with daddy.
He would go off with daddy. I'm talking about Landon in my head. Landon would go off with you.
Yep.
And I would take Tucker, and we'd go, he wanted to go do Winnie the Pooh or Small World, and they'd have their rides, and then we'd kind of like have a game plan on when we would meet up. And it was just nice because, especially when you have more than one kid, it's nice to have that one-on-one time with them. And I think we like have a lot of fun making those memories as much as we do together, but then also having their like special one-on-one time too.
Right, like mine for Landon like was Splash Mountain, because when I was his age, the first time he went on Splash Mountain was he was 5 in Disney World, and that was the first time I went on Splash Mountain when I was a kid. And so making that memory with me and him was really awesome. And then Lacey has a bunch of memories with like Dumbo and stuff with Tuck.
Yeah.
And so it is cool. We're together most of the time, but it is nice. I think is especially, you know, if you have 3 or 4 kids, try to like in that vacation take one-on-one time with those kids and make those memories, and they're always gonna remember that. Like I remember those times with my parents taking me one-on-one. And so we really try to do that, and our kids talk about that all the time. They're like, oh, remember Dad when we went on this, and we have that memory we can share with each other.
Yeah. So kind of going into this category is also rider switch. Now we didn't utilize this last time we went to Disneyland because I was pregnant and I couldn't go on those rides. But what rider switch is basically when you have a party and one of the people's in your party is too small. So like Tucker, for instance, couldn't go on a ride. So I would stay behind with him, and then Justin would go with Landon, and then we'd ask him when you get up to the line, you ask for a rider switch pass. And then once they get off, then I can take that and go on. I think you can take 2 or 3 people with you, and you don't have to wait in the whole line again. They let you go through.
It's amazing.
The lightning lane, they call it now. So it's really great. Totally utilize that if you have younger kids that
we
can't
used
go
it
on rides.
quite a bit on our Disney World trip.
We did, yeah.
Was it not last March, but the March before. So we'll link that whole series below too.
We used it a lot.
Oh, it was so amazing.
Yeah.
It was so amazing. We got to ride rides like you know, Everest a couple times, and because we're able to like kind of, because we had Lacey's sister Cassidy with us too, and so we would kind of take turns on who was going to ride this ride twice. So it's a game changer. Okay, so you don't want to take your break quite yet, but the kids are getting super antsy and they just need to run. You know what I mean? Like I feel like with Disneyland, there's just like there's not a place for them just to go, right? Yeah. And so we love that. I keep on messing up the title, but it's Redwood Creek Challenge Trail.
Yay.
It's in DCA, and it's a big just playground basically.
It is really cool though.
Really cool.
Because they updated it since we saw it last, and they are like slides and like tunnels and bridges and
it's
just
fantastic.
Places for them to run around forever, and the kids absolutely loved it. Like they were there for an hour, probably more, and they could have stayed longer.
Well, it's cool because, you know, Lacey, she's pregnant, and so she was able just to literally just hang out there with her feet up with a drink, and it was just like
it's all shaded,
and the kids were exhausted in a good way, you know what I mean, where they're just like they got back in the stroller like, all right, let's go, you know what I mean. We also stayed in the Grand California this time around, and that was amazing because it's right next to that hotel.
It is.
But even if we didn't stay in that hotel, that is going to be an add to our list on days when we're at DCA and they're getting antsy. We're just going to be like, yep,
and
we're
you
gonna
guys
go right here.
Parents want a break, and you want to just eat a snack.
I would even park hop for that reason, honestly.
Sure.
Like if I was in Disneyland, the kids are just everywhere, and we're not ready to go back to the hotel, you know, or we want to, you know, we just want to be in the park. I would go to DCA and have them chill there, and you know, one of us could stay while I go get a churro or she gets a churro. You know what I mean? And just like chill out and people watch, which is fantastic. So highly recommend that.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a scenario that I'm sure every parent's been in. You're in the middle of a line you've been waiting for a while, or maybe you just sat down and your lunch is ready and hot, and your kid says, I have to go to the bathroom.
That's the worst.
worst.
It's the worst.
So this is what we try to do. It doesn't always work because we are still in those predicaments, but just to eliminate those. Whenever we see a bathroom, which in Disney, they're everywhere, but then when you're needing it, you can't find it and it's so far away. So whenever we're just walking or going from a ride to a ride, we see a bathroom, we say, let's go to the bathroom. We don't even ask it, we just all go. When it's convenient, when you know where it's at and you're not like stuck in like in a line or in a place you don't want to leave and you have to go find a bathroom and nobody likes that.
And it works out really well because think about it. When you're in Disneyland, you know, you're either like, you're in a line, you know, for a ride, okay, or you're hanging out, eating a churro somewhere.
We talk about churros a lot.
I love churros. But the thing is like, usually from when you're walking from point A to point B, isn't like, you know, all the time. So when you are kind of making your way to a different part of the land, it just makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, if you see it, just go for it.
Right.
Another thing I wanted to mention about bathrooms is in Disneyland, next to Alice in Wonderland, is just like a little side tip, a little bonus tip.
Like behind it.
It's behind it. It's kind of one of those secret bathrooms, which it's not secret, but it's never busy.
It isn't.
Like, every single time we go there, there's just no one there. I mean, there's people there. But I'm just saying, like, it's like when you look at all the other bathrooms in Disneyland, they're always packed. You know, packed. That one never is.
I don't know why.
And it's just angled weird.
Maybe.
It's for some reason.
And the doors, the stalls are like the cards from Alice.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite bathrooms.
It's so cool.
I think it's nostalgic for me too, but it's one of my favorite bathrooms. And it's just it's quiet over there. It's always quiet over there too.
You've got another bathroom by Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah,
remember that too?
Yeah, that one.
Because Landon thought he was gonna throw up.
Yeah, I didn't have a good experience in that bathroom, so I'm not gonna recommend it. But I never knew that a bathroom existed.
Yeah.
There, which some of you guys are probably like, duh, but for some reason we didn't know, and we like, we're pretty like, we know where everything is in Disneyland. We're pretty, we feel pretty proud knowing that we know Disney really well.
But it's like.
Yeah.
What are when you enter the park, there's two bridges you can go under, the left or the right. If you go under the right, like right past that on the right hand side before the Abraham Lincoln
skinny little hallway.
Yeah, there's bathrooms down there. So.
And I was like, well, that's cool.
There's another.
The more you know.
For you. A lot of people don't know this, but Disney actually has a baby care center. So it's really neat. You can go in there and nurse if you're nursing. They have chairs in there, and also they have changing tables if you just want to go somewhere a little more private and change your baby's diaper, because I know bathrooms have that as well. But it's really sweet and it's really quiet and it's got like this nursery feel. Also, if you forget something, wipes, run out of diapers,
they have all the supplies.
They have all that stuff you need. So keep that in mind. It is amazing.
Okay, this brings us to our last tip, and we waited this entire time to bring this up, and it's kind of like the worst one.
Well, but we told you guys we didn't have an order.
It wasn't in order.
This, so.
But this is really important because when you're planning any kind of vacation or event, or just when you're planning, you kind of have to plan for, like, I'm not gonna say plan for the worst, but plan for the unexpected, and just have a plan, you know. And I think the biggest thing with Disneyland or a place where there's a lot of people is losing your kids. Because, you know, you can take a lot of pride in making sure that you have tracking your kids properly, but when there's a lot of people and the kids see something and boom, you know how it is, right? And so what we recommend, and we use this last trip and we love, were Apple AirTags. Yes. And we'll actually link the link below from Amazon. You can purchase them. What we used. But we have a little bracelet for them. That they wear with the AirTag in there, and we can track them wherever it pings, so they can make noise. So if again, it just tracks where they're at. Exactly. And I think it's just a modern day leash, if you will. Yeah. We never got behind the leashes, but we're all about these AirTags, and we never lost a kid. Thank God. But the thing is we're prepared if that did happen, and again, it was just a peace of mind kind of a thing. Yeah, and the bands are nice. They're just like, they can get wet, you know, so if they wash their hands, it's okay. But they didn't bother the boys, and they even knew, like, you know, they had to put them on before we left. Landon called them his web slingers. He thought they were like web slingers because they were red. Like, he'd be like, oh, I need my watch or bracelet, whatever he called it. And they were used to wearing those in Disney World because you need them for, like, your entry, you know, so it's kind of like the magic bands. Yeah. So it worked really well, and I, like, whenever we travel, we'll probably always use them. Yes. Another thing with the lost kid section is having a designated place, though.
And didn't you want to share about that? Because your family did that.
Yeah, I mean, this was back before like cell phones and all that kind of stuff. But you know, some things can happen. You can lose your cell phone on a ride. Your phone can die. Like there's all kinds of things that can happen, right? And so just having a place where you're gonna meet, especially if you do like a split up kind of thing. Yeah. You know, and just have a place. And so we always have like the whole like jolly holiday is where we meet up at, and that's been something from like when I went to Disneyland with my parents, and there was a time where we did get lost, but we had that meetup plan, and we were able to meet up there, and so we just kind of kept that tradition going. And so I think it's always good to have that spot to know if you just don't know what happens. Right. So again, peace of mind, planning for the unexpected, if you will.
Even for us, because cell phones do die. And this one likes to use his battery a lot.
I like to live on the red. Live on the red.
But yeah, those are our tips.
Those are our tips.
And tricks.
Yeah.
And I think
there
were 17 in there.
Who knows?
A lot of thoughts.
Who knows? But if you guys have any more tips and tricks with kids and things that you've learned, let us know in the comments below. It also helps everyone else kind of looking in on this video. Yeah. Just to kind of prepare yourself, because you know Disney, Disney does a great job in with Genie Plus, and they do a great job explaining things. But there's so much, and so being able to like learn from other people's mistakes is, I think, vital, Right. But anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do that. We would love for you guys to be part of our family, and ring the bell, that little notification bell, because it actually notifies you when we have new videos. And like this video because that helps as well. But guys, we just thank you so much for hanging out with us and watching our videos.
Yes, thank you.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
Love ya.